So there's really no way that we can point to one exact thing as the reason why the Bills' offense played so poorly in Week 1 against the Steelers. You didn't think I was going to say Week 3 against Washington, did you? There's just no thing you can point to and be like, yeah, that was it. You could call it buying into their own hype, overconfidence, the first time playing in front of a crowd in almost 2 seasons. But there's no way you can definitively know that for sure. And it came down to a pretty fluky play for the Steelers to pull it out. But they did. And granted, they were fully healthy. T.J. Watt, Devin Bush, Joe Hayden, they've missed a couple of those guys the past couple of weeks. But man, they look bad. The Steelers. Not that I'm reflecting too much on it, but if it comes down to like Week 18 and the Bills are, maybe a conference record tiebreaker away from home field, I might look back at that game. They have a chance to make up for it in a couple of weeks. Houston this week, obviously, and then Kansas City and Tennessee, and that's where they can really sort of create their own path. But like I said, if it comes down to like conference record and they lose to Pittsburgh, they lose on a tiebreaker because of like a conference loss to Pittsburgh, who is really starting to angle towards like 6-11 maybe. Like that'll be frustrating. That'll be frustrating. And really, honestly, like maybe that loss doesn't look as bad if it's somewhere else in the schedule. I don't know if it's like Week 4 or something. And granted, the Steelers are 1-2 at this point, but like if it's now and the Bills were, let's just say, hypothetically 3-0, and the Steelers were like 2-1, maybe. I don't know. This is obviously purely hypothetical. You might just be like, oh, well, we were going to lose eventually. I still think they're going to lose eventually. I don't think they're going to go 16-1. I certainly hope they go 16-1, but I don't think that's very realistic to expect it. They'll get tripped up by somebody at some point. It could have been the Steelers. It just happened to be in Week 1. So, you have all this excitement and, like I said, hype leading up to the opening game, and then they kind of lay the proverbial egg, offensively at least, and you're kind of like, what the heck? But, that was bound to happen, I guess, at some point. It even happened last year. Remember, they had that stretch in the middle of the year where it was like Jets, Chargers, Patriots, where they were not dynamic on offense, but they won like 2 out of 3 of those games, and, there's your one loss. Anyway, I've gone on too far with this point, but I guess I just kind of wanted to bring it up. The Bills destroyed Washington. Destroyed Washington on Sunday, 43-21. The game was not close. And you could even look at me, Greg, well, Greg, it was 21-14 there in the second quarter. It was not close. Okay, Washington hit 2 plays all day. That 73-yard screen pass, which is pretty fluky, to Antonio Gibson. Granted, he makes a bunch of guys miss, finds his way to the end zone. Tremendous player. The fact that he didn't start is just hilarious to me. Like, everyone coming into that game, I think, for Washington at least, from a Washington perspective, even maybe from a fantasy football perspective, was like, feed Antonio Gibson. And everyone thought that's what was going to happen. Feed Antonio Gibson. And then here they come with J.D. McKissick on first down. Like, I actually logged it in my head. Antonio Gibson's first touch was at like 1:31 p.m., which I don't remember when that was in the course of the game, but it's like 1:30. You're a half hour into the game, and your best player doesn't even have a touch yet. I mean, come on. He's clearly their best player. I mean, he's on 1A and 1B with Terry McLaurin. You have a quarterback making his first career road start, and you're not going to give the ball to your running back? And I know some of you might be like, this doesn't sound like Greg. Greg hates running the football. Okay, well, I mean, I hate running the football if you have Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Cole Beasley. Like, I think that much was evident on Sunday, right? Like, the Bills were unstoppable through the air for all but, like, one play. The first play of the game, Josh Allen sails it over Devin Singletary's head, and you're like, no, what is going on? 2 plays later, it's fine. Ends up being 3rd and 15. He finds Gabriel Davis. Ended up being Gabriel Davis's only catch, but he goes for 23. Josh completes like his next 6 or 7 or however many passes right on down the field. I mean, like I said, the Bills destroyed Washington. It wouldn't have mattered if Antonio Gibson got the ball early or not. They hit that silly screen pass, the ensuing kickoff, which you'll probably never see ever again in the history of the NFL. He kicks it off, and the wind just stops it. Only way I can explain it, I had a perfect angle at it. It just like stopped and just started falling. And, it bounces around a little bit. There's a hit, and it blasts one way, and Dustin Hopkins, the kicker, recovers it. And then 5 plays later, Washington's in the end zone. But, I wasn't really worried. You're just kind of like, oh, this is like one of those lucky things maybe that, the Steelers got. But Washington showed no signs of slowing down the Bills all day. I'm looking at the drive chart right now. I mean, the Bills, 75 yards, touchdown right off the bat. 10 plays, 41 yards, end up turning it over on downs, but then 8 for 52, touchdown. 3 for 17, touchdown. That was after the Poyer interception. And, just a terrible play by Taylor Heinicke, who was decent. I'll say he was decent. He was not good. He was certainly not good. But he might have been what you expect from a quarterback making his first career road start. He was elusive. I'll certainly give credit for that. He was very elusive. I would say that probably both teams were a little bit disappointed with their pass rush. Maybe Washington more so than the Bills. I thought the Bills were, getting there. They just weren't closing. There was 1 sack on the day, and it was technically not even really a sack. It just goes down as one. Heinicke ran out of bounds for, no gain. So that counts as a sack. But he was in the pocket, then out of the pocket, running around like a madman. Kind of felt like chasing Russell Wilson around. That's just how it felt. Russ Wilson evades sacks just about as good as anybody. Josh Allen does it very well as well, and I want to talk about that in a second. But Heinicke, man, that was just come on, dude. Go down. Can we please tackle this guy? Didn't really think he had it in him, especially when he went all the way left on that one touchdown run, then wrapped it all the way around to the right pylon. I was kind of impressed. But all in all, he still just wasn't that good throwing the football. His final stat line is 14 of 24, 212, again, 73 yards on a screen pass, which obviously counts. But, and I hate this, of course, if you take somebody's best play away, their stat line is going to look different. But other than a 73-yard screen, it's, 13 of 23 for 139 yards and a touchdown, 2 picks. The best thing he did all day was run around like a madman. Anyway, I was going through the Bills' drive chart there, and I'll go through the Washington drive chart too. The Bills, they punted once in the first half. They got a field goal before half. Washington does nothing with it. They punt, and the Bills, maybe the thing I was most impressed with all day is with 35 seconds left, they are like, let's go get another field goal. Then it's 12 yards to Diggs, 20 yards to Beasley, and another 10-yard play. I don't remember who it was offhand. But they're in field goal range, and they get a field goal before half. I predicted them to 27 points in the whole game. I predicted 27-17. It was 27-14 at halftime. So the Bills' offense was back. They were back on Sunday. And then they get the ball in the second half after a Washington, mostly 3-and-out, 93-yard touchdown drive. And then a field goal, a punt, and another touchdown. They were very good. Allen, 5 total touchdowns. Just vintage. And when I say vintage, I mean 2020. Vintage Allen MVP type performance. 32 of 43, 358, and 4 touchdowns. And I think he was 30 of 37 at some point in the third quarter. So, obviously he didn't throw much because in the the waning minutes there, even towards the end of the third quarter, because the Bills were up so big. It was 43-14 at one point. And then Washington came back with really their only good drive of the day. So, I want to give the Bills defense a lot of credit there because they've been very good all season, really. They held the Steelers in check. You maybe want another stop there to try to, at the end of the game, to prevent them from kicking a field goal to go up 10, but it's not their fault they lost the game. But, they obviously shut out Miami. And then Washington's drive charts, the first 3 drives, 2 turnovers, all 3 plays or less. Then they allowed the couple of touchdowns, but then Washington after that, 3 plays, 4 plays, 4 plays. These are all punts. 3 plays and a pick, 3 plays and a punt, 7 plays and a turnover. A turnover on downs. Bills were very good. And then they allow, at the end of the game, a 10-play, 75-yard drive for a touchdown. But it's 43-14 at that point. So I'm not here to dish out any criticism for that. I was most impressed probably by the Bills' offensive line, I would say, other than Allen. I thought that the front four for Washington, I think everybody thought the front four for Washington was very good, is very good, with Sweat and Allen and Payne and Chase Young. Chase Young was pretty invisible. And, he might get one of those high-grade games from PFF because he had a lot of pressures because he made Allen move. But I don't think that really takes into account for the fact that maybe they were kind of allowing it. I thought Darrell Williams did a very good job. And whether this is on purpose or not, it was almost like they were like, I'll just force him outside and Josh will just take 2 steps up and whizzes on by. Chase Young did that constantly. And if he's getting pressure for that, he's probably getting positive grades on like PFF and other sites like that. But the Bills were just, not to say they weren't worried about him coming into the game, but like they had a plan for him and it worked. He just power rushed, or tried to speed rush Darrell Williams all day and he just forced him outside. It's kind of like, I don't know if anybody plays basketball, but like if you're young and talented and then you find like an old veteran or a guy maybe like in his 30s or 40s that you think is not going to be that good or something, Darrell Williams. Just in this metaphor, in this example, I suppose, where was I? Okay, Darrell Williams is like the old head, if you will, playing basketball who just knows all your moves and is just gonna stop you, and you're just kind of like left scratching your head, like why couldn't I score? Why couldn't I get home against that guy? That's just a thought I had about it as well, and I think it's a pretty good comparison. The rest of the offensive line did okay. I thought Cody Ford maybe left a little bit more to be desired. I think he got beat a little bit by Jerron Payne, mostly, and John Allen inside. But Josh Allen handled it well. Anyway, I've gone on way too long about this Washington game because holy smokes. Well, honestly, there's not a lot to talk about to Houston. Like I don't want to say I'm overlooking Houston, but I kind of am. I think as a fan, you kind of have to. The Bills are 17-point favorites. Now, the last time the Bills were a road 17-point favorite was in Minnesota, Josh Allen's rookie year, and they throttled Minnesota. So you can't look past anybody. But with games against Tennessee Kansas City first, and then Tennessee coming up, both in prime time, both road games, the Bills have a chance to really. This is their chance at like home field advantage. These next 3 games, they're lucky enough this week to get another backup quarterback making his first career road start. So I think that it should be, everyone go in, stay healthy, win the game. It should be that simple. I know that coaches would hate that, but from a fan's perspective, that's what you're hoping for, right? Like a coach you can't afford to do that if you're a coach. You need to keep obviously your players focused. The game starts 0-0, but like from a fan's perspective, we see the spread. We can't do anything about what happens on the field on game day, obviously. So we just want the W, and we expect the W. I just can't imagine Houston upsetting. As good as Houston was in Week 1, that was against Jacksonville, who looks pretty lowly right now. That was with Tyrod. Like, what is Houston even building? Honestly, like they don't have a young core at all. Deshaun Watson, their quarterback, wants out. They don't really want to play him. They have Mark Ingram, Phillip Lindsay, David Johnson, Rex Burkhead. Those are their running backs. They have Andre Roberts as their kick returner. Danny Amendola's on the team. Brandon Cooks is there. Even on defense, other than like Justin Reed, who's a nice player in his own right. None of these guys are really like under 27. These guys are like at the back end of their primes of their careers, if they even had one. So I don't really understand what Culley is trying to do. Maybe they are trying to bottom out, trying to get the first overall pick. It's very possible. Everyone thought they were going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. And for a game and a half, they looked decent. Until Tyrod got hurt, Cleveland came back on and beat them. They really stood no chance against Carolina, and I don't think they really stand a chance against the Bills. I'm going to pick the Bills to beat them 34-19. I'll even give them 19. Teams trying to play catch-up towards the end of games usually end up with weird scores, so there you go. We're ahead. We're looking ahead as fans. Let's be real. Like, can we be honest about that? We're looking ahead at the Kansas City game. We'll talk about it next week. We'll talk about the Tennessee game after that. But with Kansas City being 1-2, I still think people think they're the favorite for the division, although the Chargers look very good. It's funny, because I don't think anybody really takes the Raiders or the Broncos seriously. The Broncos have beat 3 0-3 teams. The Raiders are coached by John Gruden, I guess. So, home field. Home field advantage, the advantage towards home field advantage is coming up over the next month. Anyway, guys, hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter handle and YouTube username are the same. Enjoy the game. Enjoy your weekend. As always, above all else, go Bills.